Hello, hi everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Venkatesh.
Okay, so let's start the session. So today we'll be discussing regarding the GST. GST is nothing but goods service tax. So let me share my screen. So we'll start with the topic of GST. GST is nothing but goods and service taxes. Give me a second. Okay. So goods and service tax is a terminology of finance. But you might have a question why we are seeing this goods and service tax in MM. Goods and service tax are also applicable for MM consultant. So here, this GST is an integration between finance and the MM people. So here we will be seeing this topic GST in the perspective of MM consultant today. So first thing what we need to know is SAP got introduced or started on 1980s. In 1980s, we did not have the GST. So GST got introduced in 2017. So we should know what all are the changes which came into SAP when GST got implemented in India. So as I mentioned, GST got implemented in 2017, and there are some taxes which are applicable. So this GST got implemented, or this GST got started because to have an uniform tax percentages across the country. Before we used to have different taxes for different state or different places, but after GST came into picture, we are having a single tax percentages. So in other countries, they will not be using GST. It is only in India. So if I take an example of Europe, for example, they don't use GST, they use VAT. So each and every country has their own tax slabs, tax percentages, like value-added services. But in India, we have GST. If you're getting any Indian project, if you're working for any Indian project, then you should know how GST is going to work in SAP. Okay. So as I mentioned, GST is introduced to have one tax percentages, which is used whenever you purchase or sell the material. So GST is applicable in both the cases when you buy and sell. Okay. In India, there are 4 tax slabs which are differentiated for material and services. And both are applicable when you purchase or when you sell the materials or services, or when you do a sale transaction or a purchase transaction. So the 4 tax slabs which we have in GST was 4 tax slabs. One is 5%, one is 12%, 18%, I think it is 9%, and then you have 28%. So these tax slabs are dependent based on the different categories of material we buy and different services we buy. Based on that, the tax slabs are getting decided for each and every material. If you buy any material, you get an invoice. In the invoice, you will be able to see the tax percentage getting divided into different categories. Okay. Apart from this, we also have some more 2 terminologies, which is called as HSN code. Then we have SAC code. So what is this HSN code? HSN code is nothing but harmonized system nomenclature. And we have SAC code, which is called as service accounting code. This SAC code or HSN code are completely standard all over the world. That depends on materials. Okay. So for materials, we have a terminology called as HSN code. This is applicable for material. Whenever you purchase a material, that is going to have the HSN codes. And whenever you purchase services, you will be able to see the SAC code. So if you have any invoice or if you buy anything, if you check the invoice, you will be able to see the HSN code printed on the invoice. So HSN code is going to differentiate the tax percentages for each and every material. For example, if you are buying a bulb, for normal bulb, you will have one HSN code, a different tax percentages. For LED bulb, you will have a different tax percentage and a different HSN code. So based on the material, the HSN code gets varied, and also the tax percentage is going to get changed. Okay, now here you have 5%, you have 12%, you have 18% and 28%. This 18%, this 18% is dedicated for the services. Whenever you buy service, it is always going to be 18%. Whenever you purchase or sell the material, it is going to be 5%, 12%, 28%, or 9% also. Okay, so these are the tax slabs which we have. This is for material, material, material and service. Okay, and also as I mentioned, each material has their own HSN code and each service has their own SAC codes. Okay, and these are standard. Okay, when taxes are introduced in India, there are different taxes got introduced. I mentioned regarding the tax slabs, that is regarding the percentages. Apart from this, there are some tax differentiation. So for example, we have central tax, or we can call it as central GST. Then we have the state tax or state GST. Then we have integrated tax, or we can call it integrated GST. Then you have the union territory GST. Okay, so how these tax types are differentiated and why these are differentiated. Now this depends on from where you're purchasing and where you're selling it. For example, let's say you have a buyer. Let me take another sheet. So you have a buyer and you have a seller. That means buyer is the customer and seller is your vendor. Okay. So if both customer and vendor, if both buyer and seller are in the same state, if these both persons are in same state, then the tax component which is going to come into picture is CGST plus SGST. These both tax components are going to come into picture when you're buying within the state. Okay, now when you're buying a material, let's take same example, you have a customer and vendor. If these are from different state, if these are from different state, then you will have only IGST. Then you will have only IGST. Now you also have this Union Territory GST. What is this Union Territory GST? So Union Territory GST is nothing but there are some 8 Union Territories for India. You have Delhi, you have Sri Lanka, you have Goa, Andaman Nicobar. So all these are your Union Territories, which are not states of India, but they are considered as a Union Territory. So whenever you're purchasing the material from Union Territory, or you are selling the material to the Union Territory, in that case, you will also have the same this type of GST whenever you're buying from same Union Territory to Union Territory. In that case, you will have the central GST plus Union Territory GST. Okay, if you are buying this from different Union Territory to different Union Territory, then you will have IGST. Okay, now we said that we have tax slab of 5%, 9%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. Now here we have two components. Now here you have one component, two components, and one component. How system is going to differentiate that? Let's say both vendor and customer are buying a certain material, and they have HSN code, and percentage of the HSN code is defined as 28%. You are buying this material. For this material, there is a HSN code of this, and for this, you have 28%. Okay, since we have these four tax slabs, and I mentioned 18% is for service and remaining all of for material. So for this material, this HSN code is a tax percentage. Now, if you're buying the material from different state, then you will have central GST and state GST. Then the tax which is getting applied will get divided equally into these components. So it will be 14% plus 14%. Okay. And if you take a case of buyer and customer are in the different state. You're buying from different state, then you have only IGST. Then 28% will directly apply on IGST. Okay, so these are the changes which came into picture when GST got implemented. And from perspective, we are not owning the configuration. We are not going to do the configuration. It is going to completely be the finance who is going to do the configuration. But I'll show how the configuration is done, but not completely. I'll differentiate what step is done by which consultant. Okay, and this is completely done by the FI consultant. But we should be supporting them in setting up the material master, setting up the vendor master. Okay.
Hello, yeah.
Yes.
Sir, if shipping address and the billing address, both of them are same. Difference means which GST is applicable?
Sorry.
Shipping address and billing address, both are different means how both are in different states means which is applicable.
Even that is going to pay. So the invoice is getting generated from one state, and if you're delivering the material.
Okay.
Venkatesh, I have a doubt regarding if the supplier is from abroad and importer is from India, how it will be dealt?
Then that is going to be input procurement. GST will not
Means
be applicable for the
how
purchase.
tax will be?
Yeah. So it will not be applicable for the purchase, but it will be applicable for the freight. So we discussed in the pricing procedure in which all section is the freight is getting applicable and tax is getting applicable. Till the material reaches the port of India, you don't have any tax. After it reaches Indian port, from there the tax is getting applicable.
Okay. And one more doubt: if I am working for a global company, if same material is requirement from different regions like European and Middle East and American and Asia, and supplier is from same location, and the receiver also from same location, how it will be taxation will be applicable. We discussed about Indian GST only, right? Let
Yes.
we go with other locations, how it will be applied for the same material.
In other location, you don't have this GST. There is a VAT coming into picture. So they don't have the different percentage of tax based on the material. They are going to have the tax percentage based on the locations.
Means we need to create a different material, or we will go with the same material number.
We will have the same material, but the tax configuration will be done based on the location, not on the material.
Okay, in that case, we need to configure different ECCs.
Sorry? Yes.
We need to configure different environments like in such a way.
No. Here in GST, what happens, you're going to maintain the tax configuration at material plus vendor level.
Mhm.
When you're doing at other countries, you're going to maintain only at the vendor level.
Okay.
You will have your receiving address in your PO coming from your plant, and
Yes.
you're sending from your vendor location, vendor master. So if you maintain the tax percentage at vendor master, that is sufficient. That will pull the data from there.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, this is completely not MM job. It is completely a finance job. Our job is to just maintain the details in the master data. Only for GST, if there is no finance consultant, then 50% of the config comes under MM consultant. Any more questions? Okay. If no questions, then let me move to the configuration. The configuration is pretty simple as the pricing procedure. If you have idea of pricing procedure, what we have done in the pricing procedure, it is going to be same as the pricing procedure. So let me list down the steps here, but it is going to just vary a bit, not so much. So the first step is to create the table. I also mentioned the transaction here. And then you will create the access sequence. This table and access sequence is to automate the tax percentage in SAP. And the transaction is OBQ2. Then you have the condition type. This is OBQ1. Then you have the transaction keys or accounting keys, we can call accounting keys, because the tax amount is not going to fall or tax amount is not going to load on the material. You'll always load on the different GL. So we saw the freight. Whenever we configure the freight in the pricing procedure, we used to maintain the accruals. So in the accruals, when we maintain the accruals, the freight amount was falling under different GL account based on the accounting keys. In the same way, if you want the amount to fall under different GL account, then you need to have a different accounting key created. And for those accounting key, you need to assign the GL account. Then you have the create tax procedure. Tax procedure is nothing but how you create a pricing procedure. It is same as you create the tax procedure. It will look same as your pricing procedure. Okay. And the final step is you need to assign the country to the tax procedure. That is done in OPBG. So these are the configuration steps which we need to handle from our end. And if you want to create any tax codes. You can create the tax codes. That can be done in FTXP. Okay. And apart from this, there are some configuration which need to be done from master data end. So this is the SPRO configuration. Then you have the assign GST number in vendor master. Then assign tax indicator in material master. And if you want to automate the tax percentage coming into purchase order, you can maintain the tax percentage in PIR. Tax code in PIR. So if you maintain the tax code in the PIR, then this information will automatically flow into your purchase order. Okay. Any questions here in the configuration parts? Okay. If no questions in the meanwhile, let me log into SAP. Okay, so let's start with building the condition table first. For the condition table, I'll go to the transaction M/03. So here you can see which all tables are available. If you want, you can use the same table, or if you want, you can create any other table. So for example, if I want to create a table for material and supplier, you can see if any one of the table is matching your requirement. If not, you can create your own. So I have a combination here which is selected as material/supplier, or I can also see if anything is relevant. Or if you want to go with the goods supplier, purchase organization, and the plant, you can use this. Or if you want to go with plant and material, then this. So all the combination is already created. If you want any combination, you can create. So let us use the material and supplier combination. I'll be using this 503. Okay. So let me not create this. Then we have the access sequence, which is OBQ2. OBQ2 is a transaction to create the access sequence. This is a cross client, so you will be having the workbench TR getting generated. So I'll create a new entry and I'll put B15. There's a GST access sequence. Okay, I'll save this. Then under this access sequence, you need to assign your table. So check which table you want to assign and assign that in your accesses. So add a new entry and add the table. So we said that we'll be using, one second, there is a different, only these table numbers are available. Let me check that once. Okay, condition table is not available. Let me see what are available here and check that 0003. Here the access sequence is not picking the table which are used here. Let me check for the standard table. Okay. So these are the tables which are predefined in system. Oh, thank you. Okay, so these are the predefined one. Let me check why it is not coming. It is a right period. Okay, it has the data, but the condition tables are not picking in the access sequence. I think there might be a system issue. So as of now, let me pick this access sequence only. So let me use the same access sequence, which is JGSI. This is a standard access sequence for GST, which is created by SAP. Normally, everyone will be using this. So here we have these 4 tables assigned so that we can have the GST percentage maintained at 4 levels. You can create the combination of plant, vendor, and material, the tax classification, good supplier, purchase organ, plant, and also the destination country. But normally, every business will be using this 792 because they want to see from where the goods are getting delivered. Because the vendor, in some cases, vendor will not deliver the goods. It might be there might be a partner function defined in system, and the goods supplier is going to deliver the goods to the customer. So this is a combination which is mostly used in the GST configuration. We need to create the condition types. To create the condition types, we need to go to the OBQ1 transaction. It is same as the pricing procedure. First, in the pricing procedure, we created the table, then the access sequence, and then we created the condition types. So these are the condition types. So in condition types, we have different conditions like input tax and output tax. So input tax and output tax both needs to be created. That is one thing. And we also need to create the non-deductible taxes. So why there is a non-deductible taxes? Whenever you're going to purchase the material and whenever you're selling it, if there is a balance sheet coming into picture, so you buy the material for one per tax slab and you're selling the material for the same tax slab, then you don't want to pay any GST to the government. If you're buying it for your own purpose only, then you need to pay the GST. If you're buying and selling it, then government is not going to ask any GST for that amount. Initially, you need to pay the GST to the government, and when you're selling it, you need to get it from the buyer. So that is the reason if you're doing a business, if you want to show that initially, then you can have the non-deductible taxes created. If not, you can create the only input tax and output tax. Okay, so this is same as the condition type as I mentioned. Let me open the CGST here. You can see here the condition type is same as your condition type what we created for the pricing procedure. So if you want to automate the values, then maintain the access sequence. If you don't want to automate the values, then remove the access sequence. So every time if you want to enter the tax percentages manually, then don't maintain the access sequence. If you want to get the tax percentages coming automatically from the condition records, then keep it. Then you have the condition class. Condition class is what type of condition it is. It is going to be taxes. So we have the taxes maintained here. Then you have the calculation type, how the calculation of the taxes should happen. It is based on the amount or based on the quantity or the percentage. So tax is defined based on the percentage, so it is maintained as percentage. And the condition category is tax. So we also discussed how to create a condition type in the pricing procedure for taxes. It is going to be same as how you create the tax condition records or condition types. Then you have this item condition and the header condition. Always the taxes should flow in the item condition, not in the header condition. Okay. Then you have the pricing procedure here. Whatever pricing procedure you create, you can assign it over here. As of now, you can remove this here. So if I scroll down and check for the accruals, you don't have the accruals maintained here because the system is automatically getting defined that this is going to be defined for the different GL accounts. Okay. Any questions in the condition type here?
Venkatesh, is there any tab to know whether it's in input tax or output tax?
No, here you'll not be able to see input tax or output tax. When you create a tax code, there you can differentiate it as an input tax or output tax.
Will both input and output tax be same or will it be different? Because
Yes, it
since
is.
it's a product, when we buy, we have the same tax. Then we have to sell. We have to sell it to the same tax. Is it?
Yes, it is. When you're buying it, it will be the same percentage. And when you're selling it, it will be the same percentage.
Okay, Venkatesh. Thank you.
So when we discuss regarding the tax categories, we said that we have central tax, we have state GST, we have unit territory GST, integrated GST. So you can create these four types of condition types here. So if I take an example, so we have central GST, IGST, and you will also have the SGST here. SGST and the union territory GST, that will be UGST here. So these all are the four tax categories what we have in SAP. So if we copy it, so everything is going to remain same. You are not going to change anything. For everything, you will be having the condition class as D, which is taxes, calculation type as percentage, and condition category as D, which is tax. And every time this is going to maintain at item condition. This is not going to be at header condition, and there is no accruals for the condition types. So I'll name this as MCGST. Let me name it. And MST. Yeah, I think I made a mistake. This is SGT. And this union territory. So union territory. Okay, so these are the four taxes I created. One is the central GST, state GST, integrated, and the union territory GST. So these all are your tax condition types which we created now. With this, you should also have the non-deductible taxes to be created. If you don't have the non-deductible taxes, then every time you need to run the transaction of buying and selling. If you have the non-deductible taxes, then you can differentiate what you're buying and what you're selling. For the non-deductible taxes, you will have the name as ND here. There is no difference of creating the condition type. So I'll directly copy four condition types and name it as M non-deductible tax. Okay, the condition types which are created with M are for this section. So these all are the GST. What we created, let me make a note of it. Because when we are creating the tax procedure, it will be easier to maintain. So what we did, we saw how the condition table is created. We have seen how the access sequence is created. Then we have created the condition types. Now we created the pricing procedure in the pricing procedure. Here, what we will do is we will be creating the tax procedure. To create the tax procedure, you have the transaction OBCN. Before that, you need to create the transaction keys if required. So let me go to OBCN. So OBCN is the transaction keys. So if you want this amount to be debited from different GL account, then you can assign this, or you can create this transaction keys. Or let me use the same transaction keys. This is just a new entry, nothing apart from. So for all input tax, you will be having different transaction keys. And for all output tax, you will be having different transaction keys. For non-deductible taxes, you will be assigning the output tax. For normal input tax or you have the tax type which is going to differentiate. It is going to be output tax or it is going to be input tax. Okay. So you can create the transaction keys here for central GST, integrated GST. Then you have the state GST. Then you will also have the union integrated GST. So you can, if you want, you can create new. Let me go to new entry and name it as B state GST. And you can mention the tax type as input tax and the posting indicator as 2 with a separate line. Okay, and you can say that. Like this, you can create different transaction key. If you want to pay from different account, then you can create different transaction keys. Or if you don't want to pay from different account, if you want to pay from a single account, then you can manage with only one transaction key. That is also fine. Okay. Now we are going to create the procedure. To create the tax procedure, you need to go to the transaction OBQ3. This is going to look similar to a pricing procedure. I'll create a new entry. And I'll give this, so batch 15. Save it. And if I go to the control here, I select this and go to the control. So this is a screen where we filled for the pricing procedure. We are going to do same here for the GST also. But one condition is you need to maintain first the base price. So the condition type for the base price is BASB, it should be. So base amount. Okay, the step, let me give it as 10, enter. Now keep on adding all your GST condition types here. So everything related to M was our, this is for state GST. This is for central. Initially, first you need to enter all the GST categories, then we need to enter the non-deductible taxes. Then you have the integrated GST. Then you have the union territory. Okay, post that, enter all the non-deductible taxes. So this is your non-deductible taxes. Then central. Then union territory. Also integrated. Then the union territory. And keep all the steps different because all are different condition types. Okay. Now take the from always from 10. You should always calculate from 10. For all the tax categories, maintain the 10. And for non-deductible, map the state GST with your state GST. Only then the amount will be nullified. So if this pricing procedure is coming into picture and you're paying the state GST for using this condition type, you can get the refund against this condition type. So I'll keep 20 here, 30 here. For central, you need to maintain central. For integrated, maintain integrated. For union territory, maintain union territory. 40 and 50. Okay. And here you have the accounts. You can maintain through which account you need to pay the vendor. So you can take the transaction keys from already created, or you can create a new one if required. So I'll take already created. So state GST, central GST, integrated, and union territory. And for on non-deductible, you can maintain the single account. So it should be NBB, non-deductible tax. So maintain the same for all the things. Okay, you can save. So this is how you are going to create the tax procedure for the tax configuration. So based on this, the system is going to calculate the tax, what we maintain in the tax code, and it is going to fetch the tax percentage into this pricing procedure. And if you are going to sell this amount or sell this material to the other person and you're getting the tax back, then your non-deductible taxes is going to nullify your tax from this. So that is the reason we maintain it like this from 20, 30, 40, 50, whenever you are getting a refund of tax or state GST, it should always consider this condition type. So this is how you need to configure the tax procedure. Any questions here?
So,
Venkatesh,
sir,
Venkatesh, when we are creating a PO, this will come into conditions column, right?
No, this will not come into conditions column. This will come under, when you create a purchase order, you have an
Item.
invoice tab.
Okay.
In the invoice tab, you have an option called tax code. So if you put the tax code there, the taxes are getting calculated there. It is not going to affect your pricing procedure. This
Okay.
configuration is not going to affect your conditions in the pricing procedure.
And when the purchaser buys a material, he will not be putting this, or the finance team will be doing it, or
Finance team will be configuring this, but when we create the purchase order, we need to put it.
okay. When we create a purchase order, we need to enter the slabs.
Yeah.
Okay, and it will not be automatical. Automatic account deduction can be done, right? For this.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
I mean to say, for a specific commodity, if it is coming under a specific slab of 28% or 18%, so how will be deducted?
That is going to come from the tax code. So we will be creating the tax code for each and every percentage and the tax
Okay.
slab. So you're going to maintain the tax percentage there. And when you maintain the tax code in your purchase order, the values are going to flow from your tax code and the condition record. So whenever you put a base price, whenever you put an amount of the material, so system is going to calculate the tax based on the base price and give you the tax rate there. And when you are posting the invoice, this will not get affected when you're doing the goods receipt. When you're doing posting an invoice, only at that point of time, this tax values will come into picture. Because the
Okay.
taxes should not flow on the material cost. It should be out of the material cost.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Venkatesh, I have a question. Is the tax depends on item level or complete header level in PO?
It is always going to be at item level because each and every material is going to have different tax based
Okay.
on the HSN code. Any more questions before I create the tax codes?
That those columns in this MRN boxes, MRST. What are those boxes
Which one?
in the middle?
This one. This is like manual. If you want to enter this condition as manual, then you can enable this. So this will not come into your pricing or it will not come into your tax configuration. If you enable this as manual, so this condition you can maintain manually or enter it manually. There is one. This is a required field. If you enable this, then there is going to be a mandatory field to fill. And this is going to be statistical. And whenever you maintain statistical, end line will be your effective value will be your statistical. So here we don't have the effective value. We are not enabling the statistical.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'll save this and I'll go and create the tax code. So I'll go to the tax code creation, which is FTXP. So system will ask you for which country you need to create the tax code. So first we need to define for which country are we going to define this tax code. So I'll give us India. And here you can create the tax code. So I'll give it as V1. Give the tax name. So we said that we are going to have this different tax slabs with the different tax categories. So you will have CGST plus SGST for 5%. Like this, you need to create for all the tax percentages. Again, new tax code for CGST, SGST, 9%, CGST, SGST, 18%, CGST, SGST, 28%. And you should define what is a tax type. It is an input tax or output tax. So in the purchase order, we will always enter the input tax. So we'll be creating the input tax here. Enter the input tax, click on enter and fill under which condition type this tax percentage should fall and mention the tax rate. So I said 5%. It is going to fall under central GST is 2.5%. Okay, and the state GST is 2.5%. And save it. In the same format, create all the tax codes which you need. So I said we are going to create for 18% or 9%. Tax type should always be input tax. This is going to be 4.5 and 4.5. Then B3, 18%. So let me do one thing. Let me create IGST for 18%. Okay, it is also going to be an input tax. So for IGST, I directly enter 18% here. I would enter the value. Okay. So I directly enter the tax percentage of 18% in integrated and save. So like this, you need to create multiple tax codes so that these tax codes will be applicable in your purchase order and you can enter it manually. Okay. And then the last step is you need to assign your tax codes or the tax procedure to your country. So what I'll do is I'll go to the transaction OBCL. Okay, here you need to find your company code. Here you need to assign your input tax. Our input tax is V1 just for reference. And I'm going to save it. Okay. Okay, this is done. And one more thing is you need to go to the transaction OBBG. So here you need to define the country. So this will be done by your finance team. So assigning the tax procedure to the country will be done by your finance. So for India, you need to define your procedure. So we created batch file and save it. Okay. So these are the configuration which we need to do for GST. As soon as we do this, then you also have some more transactions where you need to assign your company code to your tax percentage, which we assigned right now. And the main thing is you need to activate your supplier master and the material master. Initially, first, if I go to material master, let me take some material what we'll be using. For this, if you go to purchasing view, here you'll see the tax indicator. So for this, you need to maintain the tax indicator. So it should be taxable under GST. If you don't have this taxable under GST, then tax will not get calculated for the material. Okay. So this is one thing. I'll save this. In the same way, for each and every vendor, what you create, you need to maintain the tax codes. Okay, give me a second. Yeah, sorry. So let me open the supplier. Okay, in this supplier, you need to maintain the tax of the GST number. Let me open the supplier. It should already been maintained. So you can maintain a dummy value. That is not mandatory that you should maintain the correct GST number for the testing purpose. You can maintain any GST number as of now for the testing. My system is taking so much of time. Okay. So here in identification, you will have the tax numbers. So you need to maintain the IN3, which is an Indian GST identification, and maintain the number here. So if these both are in place, only then the tax code will come into your purchase order. So now let me go and create a purchase order. I'll put the same supplier. Use the same material. Plant is this. Quantity. Purchase scope. So here in the invoice tab, you will have an option called tax code. If you select here, there are no tax values now because the tax code is not assigned to the company code. We missed some steps mostly. So the tax code is assigned to the country, but tax code is not assigned to the company code. So let me check which is missed here, and then let me assign that back and come back. So let me go to the config. So let me check. We created the tax percentage. Let me see if we are assigned it for the company code through table level. So J underscore 1I0N D. So here we have these entries. We have B1, B2, B3. Okay, we have these entries created because as soon as we create the tax codes, those are automatically assigned here. Okay, and let me check if anything is missing. We miss anything. First, let me check the config from beginning. We created the condition table. It's a sequence. Condition type. Keys. Okay, let me check this FTXP. Tax codes B1. We just created, but why systems? Maybe these are created, but my system is asking again. B1 to B2. Yeah, those are created. Let me also create the output tax. FTXP. B1 to B4 is the input tax. Let me check for the output tax. So now I'm creating an output tax with the same value. And let me see if the output tax is coming into picture. Then in that case, then I would have mistaken. So instead of input tax, we should have created the output tax. Okay, so now we have, it was a mistake, I guess. So here we have the V1 and V2. Initially, this was not coming into picture. So now we have V1 and V2. So I select this. And beside you will have a taxes coming here. So if this is coming, then the taxes are getting calculated. So you can save it and post. So the taxes will not get calculated from the conditions. Here you will have the zero taxes. Here you have the zero tax. But in the invoice, you have the tax code coming here. So this tax code for 5% is going to get varied from different GL account. When you save this and do the goods receipt, you will not see the GST value coming into the goods receipt. But when you post an invoice, you'll be able to see that in the invoice tab. So I'll go to /NVIGO. I'll click on item OK. Story location. Posting period issue. /N. So we are in August. April, May, June, July, August, July. So there are some OBYC configuration. We resolve that. Only then we will be able to post. For sure, we will have the BSX also. Okay, we have the BSX entry. So GR got posted. If I open the GR and show, you will not be able to see any of the tax entries here because taxes will always flow in your invoice tab. So in your pricing procedure, this tax procedure is not going to impact anything. This will always get calculated in a different manner. Okay, so this is how you need to configure a GST. Any questions?
Venkatesh, can you please show again how it looks in the PO once tax is applied on a particular material?
Yes, in the PO. So when you click on this taxes, so there are some finance configuration missing. So as soon as you apply, put the tax code here, if you click on this taxes, then this will take you to the other screen where you will be able to see the tax values coming there. So that is how
Okay.
you can see the value there. So as an MM consultant, our job is to get the tax code getting applied in your purchase order. So it is getting applied, but the values should come from finance and that will get loaded in your taxes tab here.
Venkatesh, now you have created for five.
Yeah, you need to create multiple tax codes with the tax slabs.
Oh, okay. For each slabs, you have to create for
Yes.
these kind of things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Each slab and each category.
Each category. Okay.
Exclusive of taxes in this screen, is it?
Yes. In your conditions, you will have excluding the taxes. because the taxes are getting calculated from other place.
The landing cost of the material will be shown after the transportation cost will be included, right? That inbound values.
Yes. So the material will have the landing cost of your discount, freight, and the packaging, loading and unloading, but not the taxes. Because if you're landing the taxes on your material, if you're getting a refund of your tax, then that is not going to get applicable. Because you cannot charge the tax on the customer whom you are selling. If you're landing the taxes on your material, so your material price will get increased. And again, when you're creating an invoice for the customer, again, you are going to apply the taxes. So it will be a dual tax. So that is the reason we don't apply the taxes on the material and load on the material.
Understood. Thank you.
Any more questions?
So for GST, only this defining this slabs for that each commodity will be our role
Yes,
in
that is also not going to be our
configuration.
role. That is also going to be a finance role. But in case finance is not available, then that is going to be fall under us. Our
Okay.
role is to just maintain the master data.
Okay. Understood. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. If no questions, then I'll move to the next topic, which is batch management. So can someone tell what is the meaning of batch? What is the meaning of batch? Think in the perspective of purchase.
Group of commodities.
No. Batch management is nothing but, for example, if you're buying any material, you will have a batch number on it.
Batch means group.
Group of the materials. So if I take an example of medicine, for which all material you have the expiry date. For which all material you have an expiry date. For those materials, for sure you will have a batch.
Batch number.
Yes, the batch number. So
Okay.
batch number is going to define you when the material got manufactured and when is that going to expire. For example, as I took an example of medicine, let me take the same thing. Medicine has an expiry date. So these products or materials, they are getting produced in a manufacture unit. So when they're getting manufactured, you are creating a purchase order for 100 pieces and you're sending to the vendor. There is no condition that vendor should manufacture 100 pieces in a single day. He can manufacture 10 pieces in one day, other 20 pieces in another day. So whichever material is getting manufactured on a same day, so those will have a single lot. So one lot will have one batch number. So that based on that, we can decide in a single day, this material got manufactured. For example, today, 10 pieces got manufactured. For this material, the expiry date is 30 days. And after 2 days, on Monday, he is going to manufacture some more 220 pieces. Then this 10 pieces expiry date will be 3rd of September. For these 20 pieces, it will be 5th of September. So if he is not mentioning the batch, then that means System will consider that all the products or all the quantity are manufactured on the same day, and it will consider the expiry date as past days. So that is the reason we have this batch which is getting used here. The number of quantities which is basically produced or manufactured at one time. So this batch management is mostly used in FMCG, pharma chemical, wherever you have the products which are having expiry date, and all these will have a batch number dedicated to them. So if you buy a milk from the market, you will have a batch number on it, mentioning that you need to best before this milk on this date. What is the duration within the product is going to expire? So all the material which is having batch is going to have the expiry date. Okay, to define this batch, there is no configuration in system. You need to just define which material should have the batch managed, which material should have the batch enabled. If you enable the batch management for that particular material type or the plant, so only those plants material will have the batch managed. And also, you can individually select which material you want to have the batch managed. So when you're creating a material, you can mention that for this material you need the batch. So that whenever you're doing a goods receipt, system is going to consider, or system is going to create a batch number on it automatically. Okay, now there are two terminologies which you need to understand. One is the minimum shelf life. One is the maximum shelf life. So what is the meaning of minimum shelf life and maximum shelf life? The meaning of minimum shelf life is the material can sustain at least for 3 days. When I say, for example, you are buying a milk, and on the milk you will see best before. Best before 2 days. That means you need to use that milk within 2 days. But when you say best before 2 days, it is nothing but the minimum shelf life. You can still use that milk after 2 days also, if you are preserving that milk under certain degree temperature. So for example, if you buy a milk and if you're storing it under a normal temperature, you will not be able to use it after 2 days. Automatically, the milk will get spoiled. If you're storing that milk in a freezer under -2 degree or -3 degree Celsius, then the packet will tell that you need to best before 2 days, but you can also use that milk after 2 days because you're storing that under a certain temperature. Minimum shelf life is nothing but minimum these days this material is going to survive. After these days also it might survive, but you need to check yourself. Then you have the maximum shelf life is nothing but they'll directly mention the expiry date. Expiry date 03/08/2025. If they mention the date and mention expiry date is this, then after that date you are not supposed to use that material. That is the difference between best before and the expiry date. If you see best before, you can still use after the best before days, but you need to check on your own. It can still sustain. They will be giving the days at least 1 or 2 days before. If they directly mention that it is an expiry date, then you should not use that material after the expiry date. So that is the difference between minimum shelf life and the maximum shelf life. So in the material master, when you're configuring the batch, you can maintain the minimum shelf life and also the maximum shelf life. I'll tell that minimum this milk is going to survive for 2 days, but maximum 5 days. I guarantee that this milk is going to survive for 2 days, but if you're keeping that under certain temperature, it can come for 5 days. But after 5 days, if you're keeping at any temperature, you should not use this. So that is the meaning of this minimum shelf life and maximum shelf life. So why I'm explaining this minimum shelf life and maximum shelf life is, based on this, the system is going to decide the expiry date. So you have two more terminologies, which is called as production date and the expiry date. When you're creating the material, if you are maintaining the minimum shelf life, if you are maintaining the value in the minimum shelf life, then the expiry date is the mandatory field when you are posting the goods receipt. If you are maintaining the maximum shelf life in the material master, then the production date is going to be mandatory. So this is an important thing. If you are maintaining the minimum shelf life in the material master, when you're doing the goods receipt, system will ask you to enter the expiry date. If you are maintaining the maximum shelf life when you are creating the material, system will ask you to enter the production date. Is this clear? And also the meaning of minimum shelf life and maximum shelf life.
Yes, Venkatesh.
Okay. So now let me go into system and create a material and test how the batch is going to work. So I'll create a scratch material. Basic data, purchasing data, general plant and accounting. So I'll give this as batch material, base unit of measure, material group. Under purchasing, you have this batch management. This needs to be enabled. If you enable this, only then system will consider that for this material there is an expiry date. Okay, I'll click on enter. In the plant data, you have this option called minimum shelf life, total shelf life. Let me first give minimum shelf life. I'll tell 10 days. This material can at least survive for 10 days. That is what I'm giving here. Okay, this is a material. Okay, now I'll create a PO. I will use this material. The material does not exist or activated. I would have entered the material wrong material number. So this is the material. So I'm releasing it for 50 pieces. I'll save this. Net price is 10. Let's save. And now when you're doing a goods receipt, you will be able to see a new tab coming in, which is called as batch. So here you have the batch. So I'll do the goods receipt for this store location. Item OK. And I'll check. When I'm checking this, system is asking me to enter the expiration date. System will ask me to enter the expiry date. Okay, so in the batch, I need to enter the expiry date. So I'll tell the system it is going to expire on 31st of this month. I'll check this and post. Okay, now let me change this. Now I'll go to MM02 and I'll go to plan data. And instead of minimum shelf life, I'll maintain the maximum shelf life, 30 days. Okay, I'm saving it. Now I have maintained the maximum shelf life. Now if I go and do the goods receipt, item okay, check. can see enter the production date. So if I enter the total shelf life, system will ask me to enter the production date. So that system can automatically find the expiry date on its own. So if I put the production date today, so I maintain the total shelf life as 30 days. From today, system will check what is the 30 days. So if I check, the expiry date will come automatically here. So 30 days. So if I check and post, when I post this, system is creating a batch number automatically for me. So this is the batch number. And when you go to the MMBE transaction, system will differentiate your purchases differently. So it will differentiate another batch. So if you place another PO for 10 pieces and do the goods receipt with a different batch, so the batch number keeps on increasing here. So system will identify that this is the batch number, and on this date, this batch is going to expire. If you want to pull a report on batch of this particular material, there is a transaction called BMBC. In this transaction, if you put the material, let's take the material and put the material here and click on execute. The system will give for this material whatever batches you have. So that batches will get listed down here, and it will give the complete information when this was manufactured, when this is going to expire, and when this got goods received, what is the quantity under this batch. So everything will be coming here. So there is an issue. Okay, there is an error in this transaction. BMBC. If I put the material execute, it should give me the batch, but this transaction is having an error. If you're facing any syntax error or if you're facing any ABAP jump, then you need to reach out to the ABAP to get that result. Okay, this information is not getting fetched from here. In that case, I need to reach out to the ABAP to check what is the issue here. This is a program error. The syntax error is a program error. Okay, so this is how you can purchase the material with different batches. So whenever a vendor is going to deliver you the material in a lot, different lot, you can have the different batch number assigned for it, and you can have the different expiry date for it. Okay, any questions?
Venkat, does batch management applicable only for the products which are perishable?
Yes,
So it cannot be applied for automobile industry, is it?
it can be applied if you need any, if you differentiate the batch in which batch it came, so you can maintain that. You can also bypass the expiry date here. So this configuration comes under the PP, production planning. So you can ask them to bypass this expiry date, and they can bypass it from the config side. And you can just create the batch number for each and every material which are coming inward. And you can also have the serial number getting generated for each and every material. So we generated 50 pieces in single batch. If you need a serial number to be assigned for each material, that can also be done through the production planning configuration. Any questions?
Is it mandatory or business choice to have batch management?
It is a business option to have the batch management. Okay, any more questions? Okay, if no questions, then we'll wrap up here. We are done with all the sessions, and I expect you guys will come up with the resumes so that we can discuss on the resume part whenever you are ready with that. Any questions? Okay, if no questions, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Venkatesh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.